Hi, I'm John from Columbus Public Library, and this is Learn to Code a Library. In our last couple of videos, we learned the basics of HTML. If you've watched those videos, you've probably noticed that the page that we created wasn't very special. It was very basic, and that's kind of the nature of HTML. HTML is just describing the structure and the content of a page, but it has nothing to do, or very little to do, with how the web page actually looks in the browser. In this second part of the series of videos, we're going to learn a different language called CSS, that stands for Cascading Style Sheets. And CSS is used to create the presentation of a page. It controls how it looks, the layout, the colors, the fonts, how, the sizes of everything, all of that stuff. Just like in our last video, we're going to be using glitch.com. Again, Glitch is free to use. You don't need to register to use it. To follow along with this video series, all you need to do is go to this URL. Once you open that up, you're going to scroll down the page. You're going to see this button on the bottom right that says Remix This. Click on that. And here we are. Now, if we want to go ahead and get started, what we're going to need to do is open up index.html. It's on the left sidebar here. I've already got all this HTML written for you. We're not really going to be editing any of this unless we have to, which we shouldn't. But let's go ahead and take a look at how this file looks when we actually render it on the page. We're going to go up here to the top where it says Show with the sunglasses. Click on that. We've got a couple of options in New Window or Next to Code. We're going to use Next to Code. Okay, I just fast forwarded a little bit. Glitch was having a little bit of technical difficulties. I just had to hit this reload button right here next to where it says Change URL, and that seemed to clear it up. So, if you've gotten this far, you will see a page that looks like this on the side. We are going to make Cat Book. It's your #1 place to connect with cats. We're going to start making this a little bit nicer. If you're coming from our last class where we did HTML, you're not going to need to know a whole lot more HTML just to be able to use CSS, but CSS and HTML are linked together. So kind of like we said before, the HTML defines the structure of the document and the CSS defines the styling of it. The simplest thing we can do is let's find an HTML element. Let's take a look at this one, header. This includes the site title, the description, and also the navigation. So all of this stuff we see at the very top of the page. Let's change how that looks. So we're just going to go inside that header tag. We're just going to add a new attribute. We're just going to add an attribute called style. So the style is going to equal something. Make sure that's in quotation marks. Let's say background color blue. Okay, so that one took it a second to load, but as you can see, this background turned blue, and that doesn't really look very good. Let's go with a different color. Let's go with maybe gray. So that's a little bit more legible. And we can kind of play with this the more we want. Let's say we want to change this. We don't like that underline. We think that underline's kind of ugly. That element is this right here, the A for anchor. We're going to add a style to that. Text decoration, none. And the underline disappeared. So that's really what CSS is. It's these rules basically telling something what the background color is, what the text decoration is, whether it's underlined or not, and so on. And the list of possible rules is enormous. One of the things with CSS though is you're going to want to add a style to basically every single thing on the page. Every little tiny thing is probably going to have a style added to it at some point. And what we just did, where we just added the style attribute to each element, that gets old pretty fast because there are lots and lots and lots and lots of elements, so we can't really realistically add a style to every single one. And that is where style sheets come in. And how we're going to do that is we're going to go up into the head. I don't know if I explained this really in the last video, but the head is basically a lot of stuff that is important to display the page, but none of this stuff actually appears on the page. So things like metadata, this title here, that's what appears in the title bar, but not actually on the page itself. Inside that head, we're going to make an element called style. And in that style is going to be all of our rules. We can take this, actually, this background color, I'm going to cut that, get rid of that, and we're going to move it to our style sheet up here. How do we do that? There's one way we can do it. We can just say anything with a header element is going to have that background color. And now it's gray, but we have a problem because this stuff is also inside of a header. It's not this same header, but it is inside of a header element, and we don't want that gray. So we need to specify just this one at the very top, and that is where this ID attribute comes in. In CSS, we're going to use the # or the hashtag or whatever you prefer to call it these days. That just means ID site header. Now just our site header has the background color gray. Gray is not a very interesting color, and I have to confess I'm not an especially artistic person as far as colors go. So when I do this kind of stuff, I like to use a cheat sheet basically. There's lots of things you can do. I'm going to go to this website called coolors.co. It's like colors, but with an extra O there. Coolors. And I can close that. Hit start the generator. And it'll take it a second to load. Let's go. You can watch the tutorial if you want. I'm going to skip that since I've seen that. And it will automatically generate a random color scheme for you. And if you don't like it, press your spacebar and it will generate you another one. And just kind of keep doing that until you've got a color scheme that you think looks nice. So I'm going to do this a couple more times. I kind of like this one. I like green. Now, whatever yours happens to be, will look something like this with these different colors, and then it's got these numbers and letters at the bottom. These are hexadecimal codes, and you don't really need to know exactly what hexadecimal is other than it's a numerical system that is used for a lot of things in computers and especially used for colors. If we want to use this color, we click on that and we just copy that number. We come back over here. Now the symbol for a hexadecimal number is a hashtag, and then just paste that color code there. And now we've got this kind of nice minty green background. Now what will we do? Let's go back down here. Remember how we removed that underline from that link? If we want to put that up here in the style sheet, it doesn't have an ID. How we do that is we will basically nest rules. So nesting rules, you can kind of think of them as like Russian dolls. You put one rule inside of another rule, inside of another rule, and that's how you get to the element that you want. So we're going to say we want site header, and then inside that we're going to put a space and a letter A for the anchor element. That's this. And we're going to say for that we want text decoration none. So what that did is all of the A elements inside of the header no longer have underlines. What I want to do though, I'm going to do something a little bit fancier. I think it would be pretty cool if when you hovered your mouse over the links, they did have an underline. So the way that works is you go # site header A, and then we're getting a little fancier here. That's going to be : hover text decoration underline. And now when you put your mouse over them, that underline appears. So that's basically how you read CSS. The # means something with this ID attribute, and then if there's multiple rules, so in this case there's also this A element, that means that all the A elements inside the site header, and then anything after this : is kind of like a special thing, like this is just when it's hovering, or you're hovering your mouse over it, is when you underline it. And then you have the rule itself. And we can put as many rules as we want in these curly brackets. Let's say we want to change the color of the links. I'm going to go with, what do I want them to be? Let's see what this looks. This dark lava color. Okay, there we go. Took it a second. But now everything is that kind of brown color. And we can even get fancier. We can change the color for when you hover it. And now it's a light brown. That's all there is to it, as if it could be that simple. That's the basics getting started. Using these rules and these building blocks, you can eventually style everything on this whole page. The only tricky part is there are lots and lots and lots and lots of rules to style every single possible little thing you could ever want. I'm going to start going down the rest of the page and adding more styles to it. So here we have Secret Agent Mittens. This is his profile. If we go down here, we'll see that it has this class called Profile Header. And then under here we have these other classes: class profile title, class profile photo, etc. Class buttons. A class is kind of like an ID. Remember earlier we had the site header ID and the site title ID, etc. A class is different, that an ID has to be unique, so there's only one site header on each page. You can have lots of different things for the same classes. The way you target a class is you just put a period, and then profile header. I had to remind myself what it was. Let's make the background of that kind of just a minty green. There we go. You know what? I think that should actually be the background of the whole page. I'm going to go up here. The way you target the whole page is with the body thing. You could also use HTML. Basically what it does is it targets this tag right here, and everything is inside the body. There we go. So now everything is going to be that minty green. Change that, be profile title. That is this text right here. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I think it's a little bit too big. Let's say 20 pixels. How does that look? So that's a little bit smaller. I think I can make it a little bit bigger though. A lot of this is trial and error. Just make things bigger and smaller until you kind of find the happy medium that's just right. And his profile photo is class profile-photo. I'm going to do something a little bit fancy here. I'm going to give it some rounded corners. And it's not working. Oh, I see why. This is one of those tricks. Profile photo IMG. There we go. So if you weren't able to follow that, it happened kind of quickly. The dot profile photo targets this element right here, this figure element. But the thing that we're actually giving the rounded corners are is this IMG, this image element that's inside the figure. So we have to target that profile photo and then IMG. And one kind of cool trick with CSS is that there's a lot of different units you can use. So I've been using pixels. They're pretty much the most straightforward type of unit, but you can also do other fancy things, like you can use percentage, like 20%. So that's just the radius of that border is 20% of the side, that edge of the photo basically. Or you can go really fancy, make it 50%, and it turns into a perfect circle, which I happen to like, so I'm going to leave it like that. But I'm not done with that. It still needs to pop a little bit. So I'm going to give it a border style solid. Border width. Let's go with 4 pixels. See how that looks. That's a little thick. Go with 2 pixels. Our border is black right now. I'm going to change that border color to one of these. I'm going to go with that dark lava, the earthy brown. It doesn't look that much different because the brown is pretty dark, but it is brown now instead of black. So I think that looks a little bit nicer than before. Now there's sort of this caption under it. I'm going to make that a little bit different. As you can see, it is inside this fig caption element. So just like how we did profile photo image, we're going to do profile photo fig caption. And we're going to do font size. Now earlier we put the font size in pixels, and then like I mentioned, there's different units. There's pixels, percentages. I'm going to use one called an EM. I'm going to say 0.8 EM. The text got a little bit smaller. An EM is kind of like a percentage. Basically, you can think of it as 1 EM is one of whatever the font size currently is. So 0.8 EM is kind of like, it's kind of the same thing as 80%. And then of course like 2 EM would be kind of like 200%. I'm gonna make it a little bit smaller. I'm gonna make it a little bit lighter. The font weight is a number. 300 right here is just a little bit lighter than the default. You can play with that for yours to see what you like. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to say text align center. This thing next to his photo with some little facts about him, his residence, his age, his code name, all of that fun stuff. And it's in this class called bio-table. So I'm going to change that a little bit. I think the font size is a little bit big on that. We also have these buttons under here. Right now they don't actually do anything. You can click on them if you want. And we can see that they have this class called buttons. Easy to remember. I'm going to come back up here. So they can all fit on one line. And I want to style each of the individual buttons. So we see we have this divider with buttons, and then each button in it needs to have its own style. So I'm going to say dot buttons button. I'm going to give it a color. I kind of like this. I'm going to give it actually this green, this winter green dream. See how that looks. Okay, these buttons look a little bit darker now. They still don't look very good. So I'm going to make the background color that dark green and the foreground color this light green. See how that looks. Okay, well, we're getting somewhere. I want them to have a border color. And we'll give the border a radius, kind of like we did with the photo. Make it a little bit smaller because these are just buttons. There we go. All right. So those buttons are looking a little bit nicer. I'm also going to center them. I think I'm going to make the border on those buttons a little bit smaller. Let's go with 2 pixels. Or you know what? Let's go with 1 pixel, make it really thin. There we go. Just a little bit of an accent to them. And kind of like how we did with the links, making them change when you hover over them, we're going to make the buttons change when you click on them. Buttons, button, active. What I think we'll do we'll make the border change color. There you go. So when you click on it, you can see that border flashes a different color. Now, if we had a lot more time, we could change these and make them a lot fancier, but this will do for now. Let's move along. Now, if we go down here, we've got Secret Agent Mittens' his bio. We've got some stats. He's got his favorite food, his strengths, his weaknesses, his skills, a quote by him. Let's make those look a little bit nicer. So let's take a look at the HTML. In this skill, we see we've got this class for top skill. Now, classes and IDs in HTML don't do anything on their own. You can put as many classes and IDs you want in your page and nothing's going to happen. So we've got a couple of top skills here, but nothing's going on with that. So to fix that, back up here to our style sheet. I'm going to say top skill color red. Our top skills are now red, so you know those are serious business. This quote, I think, needs to kind of pop out a little bit more. I want it to look more like a pull quote you would have, like, on a newspaper page or, something like that. So it's in this HTML called block quote with a paragraph and then a cite tag. So back up here, I'm going to go ahead and not messing with any I think this should be white. And this is going to get a little bit annoying because every time I change anything, the page is going to jump up to the top. So we're going to do that. Now it's in a white background. I'm going to give it a border radius. Now we're getting into an interesting problem where the text seems to be too close to the edge to the point where it's actually going over the edge where that radius is. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to change the padding and the margin. Let's go with padding 1 EM, 1 line. And now, as you can see, there is a padding here. Right now I have padding as 1 EM. That means on every single side of the box, it has one EM. We can also specify every single side. So we can say like padding 1 EM, but we want padding on the top to be, let's make that just like 0.5 EM. Make that a little bit smaller. So it got a little bit smaller. Now I want that paragraph to be bigger. So I'm going to go block quote P, make that font size, let's go with like 2 EM. That's twice as big as it would normally be. Now that P, the paragraph tag, has its own margin. So I'm going to give its margin, I'm just going to make it 0. Whenever you want something to go away in CSS, just make it 0. And there you have it. We got his quote, and then that's the remark given at the 2019 Kitty Agent Gala. And we could continue to do this. The page is certainly not complete. We still haven't styled any of these comments or anything down here. A lot of this is just a lot of little details. Just adjusting every single font size, making everything line up perfectly, giving everything the right colors, and all that stuff. If you are following along with your own project, you can certainly feel free to continue to add things to it. You will notice that there is a comment box at the bottom here. It says write a comment here, but clicking it doesn't actually do anything. That will have to be our next session. While CSS is what controls the presentation of a web page, we still don't have anything that can really control the interactivity, adding comments or changing things, stuff like that. Stay tuned. Keep watching our Chattahoochee Valley Library videos, and we will see you next time.
We are springing into summer learning at the Chattahoochee Valley Libraries, and the program you just attended is one of the ways you can earn completions. Just go to cvlga.org and look for Spring into Summer Learning. You can register yourself and your family online, and then start reading and attending our online events. That's all you have to do. We're giving away weekly gift certificates, and every completion you make enters you into a grand prize drawing for tablets, games, gifts, and more. Remember, you have to register to win. cvlga.org, and we'll see you online again real soon.